Hi, and welcome to this session. My name is Eric Charles. I'm with Xactly, and I have had the opportunity to corner Dan King, who's the Vice President of Finance for Xactly. Getting time with Dan is always fun for me. He's got more than 20 years of experience working in a bunch of fast-growing SaaS companies. I've known him for the entire time here at Xactly. He's been with private companies with Silicon Valley and outside of Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is now the Silicon world, I think. And when I was thinking about who could I corner for a conversation around the finance perspective on companies going to market and how finance sees working with sales, he would be great. Since usually he's just harassing me about my expense reports that seem to trickle up in his direction. Exactly. When we were coming up with the thought process for this, his statement is, look, Eric, partnering with sales is critical for finance. Everybody always wants to pick on finance, but there's always this question of what's the interaction? Are they your partners? Are they the opponents? Are they one more, are they one more roadblock to get through to close a deal, et cetera? So let's start there. Finance and sales. How do you see your role when it comes to working with the sales team?
Absolutely. So, good question. I view myself and my team as sales enablers, and how we go about doing that is we're deliberately partnering with the sales teams, the sales leaders, all groups involved to make sure that whenever we're trying to get deals done or get things pushed through, that we start with yes and kind of work our way back from there. So avoiding the concept of the traditional business prevention department statements and things like that is it's all around reducing the friction between finance and sales to make sure that things go smoothly. And OG, by the way, some of the benefits of that is they'll trust you and they'll come to you for more guidance along the way as well, if you're an easier partner to do business with.
The kind of a leading question is, do you think that gives you better insights about what's going on in the field?
Absolutely. So being within the finance organization, when you're working with multiple, as you know, we're a global organization. And, I get the privilege of working with sales folks in the UK and Australia, all over the globe. And as a result, because we're more of a centralized function, we have the benefit of seeing the holistic view of all of the deals. And so as a result of that, we can take that holistic view of the experiences that we've had, and we can share them with other groups that might be a little more isolated in a specific region or a specific area, the West Coast of the US or Central or wherever, and just provide that support and guidance and counseling along the way.
How do you get sales to trust you?
Yeah, you know what? I'm a big believer in action, not words. And so the only way that they're going to trust you is if you prove yourself to be frictionless, if you prove yourself to not be the business prevention department, and you prove yourself over time to be someone that they can trust and lean in on, and as someone who can help guide them through the process, as opposed to putting up roadblocks or barriers.
So, I've spent most of my career and most of the research I do is on motivation and measures and getting people to do what we want. So that makes me think, what are you measured on?
Yeah, so within the finance group, one of the things that we're measured on, and this is a very important point for, I would say, any company in any part of the world, is to make the business predictable, right? So when we think about, an FP&A function, a financial planning and analysis function, the goal of that is to I call it the headlights of the business. Look ahead 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, however long is meaningful to you, and forecast what's going to happen, and then start acting towards that. And so the best outcome that you can have is, no forecast is perfect, but if you're close, then that means that you've delivered the value that you've needed to and you've wanted to from a finance perspective to make those businesses predictable. Remove the surprises, remove those types of things out of the business that can distract you, and make it predictable.
When you went to school, what was the education in school, or was there, on sales and finance working together in this way?
There was none. It was all about test taking and things like that. But I don't think anywhere. In fact, I don't even know that there was any classes on sales at all. It was really just the hardcore technical skills around, when you think about accounting and finance, you think, following the specific rules and things like that. But in the reality, in the real world, there's a lot more gray. And so you want to make sure that you're working within those confines, but also the required confines, but also, you kind of have to learn your way into it, and making sure that if you're a sales-driven organization, that you're partnering and aligning yourself with sales. Even out of college, I learned that very quickly, and that was actually through getting screamed at by my CEO. Is when I think I was probably 27 or 28 years old. He comes out of a board meeting, instantly start yelling at me because I didn't recognize revenue on a deal I could have. So it's and I look back at it, and it's still one of many pivotal moments in my career where I could have done better, and learned through that and how to partner with the sales organization, particularly senior staff.
Well, and I'm laughing because you're giving me a flashback to graduate school and in financial accounting, where I got a C- on the revenue recognition quiz that our professor tossed at us. And I sat there like, no, it happened. We should, and he kept on saying, nope.
Right,
I'm like,
right.
All right, fine. I've got to go in a different direction in life because I can't deal with these rules.
That's right. There's the academic answer, and then there's the real life answer. And so you were trying to answer the real life answer, and he was having the academic answer. Totally get it.
How often do you pull the measures? I mean, are you look at a quarter? Is it a quarterly? Is it a month? Is it daily? Do you have a dashboard that's never leaves your laptop?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I think about it, I think, you want to at least measure your business quarterly, or sorry, monthly. And oftentimes if you're a fast growing business, like we are, oftentimes, quarterly may not be enough because, things change and priorities can change and things like that. But, kind of thinking about it, you always want to set an annual budget in advance, and you always want to make sure that you are following that. And if you need to pivot. If things are generally in line, then steady as she goes. But the goal of all this, again, is to make that business predictable. When it starts becoming unpredictable because of changes and pivots within the organization, you want to measure that fast, because information has a shelf life, and that shelf life is very short in fast growing businesses. So you want to be able to identify those, as proactively as possible, and then react to them accordingly and make the changes you need to.
Yeah. Now, in my world in marketing, I always say that if you're not experimenting and failing, you're not trying hard enough. So we play around with A/B testing and all that stuff. I mean, can you do that sort of thing in the finance world, though?
Yeah, you can, but what the thing is, you have to kind of set a standard for the company, right? So you can and that is called in the form of a budget. And then when you do a reforecast, that's kind of resetting the standard for the company, wide. And you can always do financial models in the background and what if analysis, and things like that are super important. But you definitely want to make sure that you have a kind of a one shining star for the company wide, for everyone to follow, kind of that North Star, so that everyone's aligned on what the expectations are. And then in the background, you can do A/B testing and things like that. But generally, you want everyone aligned towards one goal.
So this is sounding like some of the metrics you're tracking. Why don't you go into that a little deeper?
Yeah. So really with us, metrics that we track, trying to develop leading, and lagging indicators, right? So some you can kind of tell if, stuff's going sideways. You can tell through certain metrics they'll tell you in advance. Others that are a little more historical, but kind of thinking under the concept that one of the best predictors of the future behavior is relevant past behavior, and taking good solid history, and extrapolating that out. Developing those leading lagging indicators, like I said. But at the end of the day, it's very important to make sure that you're making data-driven decisions, right? So find the metrics that are important to you, whatever your business is, that's important to your industry. Find out what the best practices and standards are for those industries. Start measuring those and start orienting yourselves against that, and try to avoid as best you can the insertion of opinions and anecdotes. Make sure you're following the data and the science that's backing that, because that's ultimately, data doesn't lie.
Right. What do you do if it's someplace brand new, maybe a new product direction, or maybe a new global regional area? Where do you find the balance there? Like, we think that this country or this product is like this one, but it's within a range.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, whenever you're dealing with ambiguity, right, something like that, and you're in a market that you're literally creating or building the plane as it's flying, is you have to be able to deal with ambiguous data. You have to know what is not perfect but good enough, and oftentimes good enough will get you there. And if you need to pivot from that, pivot quickly, but you definitely don't want to wait until absolute perfection because
Mhm.
it's probably too late at that point. But also solicit the feedback from stakeholders as well, partnering with them to make sure that because the diversity of the ideas that you can get from other people might make or break the direction you take and the way in which you measure it. So collaboration is key. Doing it quickly with imperfect information is key, and perfect versus good enough.
So let's go a little deeper into that, because I mean, that's a perfect strategic goal. Let's get into the tactics. Maybe it's pipeline or reps or anything like that. You
Yeah.
know, go ahead.
How we think about that. Yeah. So, it's pretty standard industry that, whenever you're, thinking about your business and how you're growing it, of course, the concept of pipeline, you want to develop a good, healthy pipeline. You want to make sure that you have good hygiene, with it. If you're using Salesforce or another CRM, what goes in there is real, and what goes in there is good, and that you feel good, closing that. So that's one thing we do within the finance organization, is kind of measure those steps through the stages of the organization, starting at the top of the funnel, kind of going down to the lower end of the funnel. Your conversion rates should start, be tracked at that point, even throughout the quarter. And making sure that you're on track versus your historical information. But really kind of thinking about it that way, most companies, industry standard is 3x pipeline coverage. Making sure that you've got the right sales reps with the right quotas, with the right attainment levels, and that you, probably most importantly, you have the right compensation plans aligned to those goals and objectives, so that you get the right behaviors that you're looking for.
That's an interesting one. So do you get to arm wrestle with sales about the comp plan and what the measures are sometimes?
I prefer not to, but sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But at the end of the day, I mean, you really want to structure a plan that aligns with the ultimate goals that you have and roll it out to the sales team. I prefer not to have input from too much input, because it can muddy the waters. You want to get the alignment with the leaders, because ultimately the sales leaders are the ones that are going to support the organization. They're the ones answering the questions. They're the ones with the boots on the ground. And kind of ideal situation, nirvana, is you roll it out to the sales leaders and they deal with the friction as opposed to finance.
Mm-hmm. All right, so look, right, this is Xactly. I know we drink our own champagne, or perhaps I should say we drink our own Cabrera Cellars wine here.
Very nice.
What tools are you using, and how are you using them?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is within Xactly is we have a program called Xactly on Xactly. And what that really means is exactly what you're saying. It's we drink our own champagne. And how we do that is we otherwise known as we're using our own products. So we use Xactly forecasting internally to help predict our business. Sales planning internally to forecast. I can tell you, being a finance person, we have a product called CEA, Commission Expense Accounting, which helps with, if all you finance folks out there are well aware of ASC 606 and the capitalized commissions requirements now that are required. And if you're a fast growing company, or even a company that's high volume, managing that on spreadsheets is insanely hard and is subject to human error. So we actually implemented CEA ourselves back in February 2019 and use it internally every month to identify what's capitalizable versus not, but generates the journal entries for us, etc. It's just a lot easier. And OG, by the way, we use it as a subledger, for our audit. So we just auditor, here you go, off you go. Very easy. Don't have to worry about it being wrong. And it does, additional stuff that is just cool finance stuff that would probably bore, the sales team. But that obviously we use Incent, our own flagship product for the calculations and automation process. And then, using insights to benchmark our business, with the AI capabilities that it has. It's been interesting because we've collected data forever at a very high opt-in rate for that anonymized data. So that's been very good for us, and it's, we do this for a living, so and we're good at it, so we use our own products to help us with this as well, and it's been largely successful in making the business predictable.
So back on that predictable, the first one you mentioned was Xactly forecasting. How's that changed your world?
Yeah, we used to do it on spreadsheets, years and years and years ago, and well, I've only been with the company for 3 years, but having not been at Xactly, doing it on spreadsheets is insanely hard. It's not scalable. It's subject to human error. Links break. What if analysis is impossible? Things like that. So being able to automate something like that really takes all the mystery out of that, so that you're able to update things very quickly, and again, getting back to that, making that business predictable.
Okay, so I would think, I know when I was first in management consulting, I got some amazing advice of, Eric, your entire world is run spreadsheets in those days, because that's what I was good at. I was a spreadsheet jockey, and I could make the data say whatever the senior partners in the firm wanted it to say to go take to our clients. And then I was told, you got to break out of this if you're gonna get a promotion. They said you have to start being able to discuss and into the conversation. And again, so how do you sync with our sales leadership? Because I've got to assume the temptation of like, well, let me open up forecasting. This is what it says, or here's some data. This is what it says. How do you build that relationship with sales leadership, so that, again, they're not like, couldn't you have just emailed me 5 of those slides and we can move on?
Well, that's a good question, because as you know, this is, throughout the 20 plus years in my career, the reality is just, salespeople are just not Excel experts, and finance is, and it's hard, if you've got 10 spreadsheets coming your way and you've got to amalgamate the data and you don't know what cells to look for and what the totals look like and what's the commit versus the best case and things like that. If it's all on one system that everyone is contributing to, and a login, and you have all of the data in one place, and you have good hygiene within your sales team, it's all right there, right? And it takes away the mystery of, what version am I on now, and why did this spreadsheet change from the last time, and what pushed and what didn't and why, and things like that. We're able to see that all real time, and we go through that with our sales folks on a weekly basis to make sure that we have good hygiene and that we can help make this business predictable, and we're really excited about it too, for both not only the sales leadership, but also the finance leadership, because this is just, the stuff is just easy now. And where it was just painfully hard, and then you've probably been through the classic meetings. So that's not the right number, and don't look at that number. Look at, oh, I need to send you another version. All that's gone, right? And it's all just one system. One person's using it, or everyone's using it. It's one system. It's all right there, centralized in one place, real time, and saved. Data is saved in the background for you to later look at, which has made our lives a lot easier.
Is it giving you, I would hope, is it giving you more time than to catch things and jump into, say, the incentive plans or early interesting measurements?
Absolutely. One of the things is we've actually, that I've seen, is we've reduced, our meeting times as a result of that. So some of them might be, 1 or 2 hours, going through in painstaking detail. Are you talking line 22 or 23, or line 472 or 473? And okay, now onto the next spreadsheet. And so now it's just all right there, bing, bang, boom, who's doing what? Okay, get it. It rolls up to what? What's your best case? What's your gut? What's going to happen next? Off we go. Okay. And so we've seen our meeting times been reduced by roughly 50%. Or even less, or even higher, a rate of which it's been reduced. And then, because we're all now kind of used to one format of things, everyone's understanding kind of what's going on and what the expectations are coming out of that meeting as well, so that it's reduced any confusion as to what the next steps are as well.
Oh, fantastic. I'm still just smiling at the concept of fewer meetings, especially as in this remote world we've been in, where they're all sitting here across a video conference. I love our customer Zoom, but I would like to get back to face. All right, so final thoughts. Recommendation. Think of you're talking to yourself from 10 years ago, but with, say, today's technology. helping somebody to build upon and build the sales and finance relationship?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Kind of outside of the nuts and bolts is, something that oftentimes doesn't come up is, think about deliberately creating a culture that thrives on open communication around this stuff, right? We've all probably are familiar in some ways with crucial conversations or some, version of that, but create an environment that's open enough to where you can have those conversations around, what the real numbers are and where things are really headed. And so it's not finance bashing you on the head saying, you told me this last week and now you're telling me this. It's, let's talk about this together and figure out what we can do to lock arms, go into the trenches together and figure this out. And one way you do that is by having frequent one-on-ones with your senior staff, or what we in Xactly have is a liaison program where we pair our finance staff with a senior staff, and they're the one-stop shop for all financial questions, whether accounting or finance or headcount or anything like that. That way, the senior staff is not sitting around saying, who do I ask this question to? It's, I've got my finance liaison, I ask them this question and off they go. And one other big thing to do, and it may sound obvious, but oftentimes, in my 20 years, I've seen good and I've seen bad, and what bad looks like and what good looks like. And one thing that oftentimes gets overlooked is aligning your finance and your resources to your go-to-market strategy, right? Because sometimes they might have separate goals which may be in friction with each other. And if one person is motivated by one thing and another person's motivated by something else, that can be bad juju. So that would not be cool. You definitely don't want to have that. And then, just from a finance perspective, kind of getting back to where I started, you've got to deliver, and it's through actions, not words, not talk, but actually going through with your teams, your senior staff, your trusted partners, getting in the trenches with them and knowing that, you're not just there to measure them, but you're there to partner with them.
So basically a call from Dan King, Vice President of Finance of Xactly internally, is not necessarily something to be scared of and avoid, like I might have done once or twice,
Correct. Yeah, it's funny. It's interesting. Sometimes it starts off that way sometimes, just out of, the perception, but it doesn't end that way.
Yeah.
And so that's the goal.
That's great. Well, I want to thank you for carving out, half an hour of your time to meet with me today, and I appreciate you sharing all of this. I feel like this should become a college course for those undergraduates who are looking for a career in finance, to understand the other teams they're going to be working with. So, and thank you very much, and looking forward to speaking with you again in the future. I'm sure we'll have another subject or three to cover.
Excellent. Looking forward to it. And thanks for having me.